Look at Joe Scarborough. What does he say?
Is this the one you're looking for?
Yeah. Let me hear it.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the
It's 6 in the morning. It's 6 in the morning. F you.
This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. I've known him
Not
for
a close
years.
second.
The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years.
And we're
If
all
it weren't
fucking
the
liars.
truth, I wouldn't say it.
Welcome to the Drop the Mask podcast, dropping knowledge and infiltrating the hive mind of mainstream thought. I'm here to break down what's wrong with our systems, leaders, and institutions. I'm your host, Jason. Welcome back to Drop the Mask. I'm coming off a huge episode with the great Spike Cohen. That was a fun one, and Spike is fantastic. So if you haven't seen that yet, go check it out. I'll wait. Okay, that's long enough. Let's get into it. There's a lot to talk about today. If you're new here, I named the show Drop the Mask because we all wear masks. And I'm not talking literally. This isn't 2020 with the bullshit COVID masks. Although I see you people out there still clinging to it. Why? It makes no sense. Even Dr. Truth Science himself, Dr. Fauci, admitted they didn't make a difference. But figuratively, we all wear masks in one situation or another. We try to hide something we don't like about ourselves and avoid showing it to the world. A lot of it is innocent. Like certain parts of your personality that don't serve you well, people try to hold that back so it doesn't hurt someone or hurt the relationship. Or it could be something physical, like I don't like my bald head, so I wear a hat. Those things aren't hurting anyone, though. We do it to try to look good, or to try to be kind to others, or just to present our best selves so that we can make friends and fill those social needs that everyone has. But as you grow up, if you have even a little bit of intellectual curiosity, you start to realize that some really important things have been masked from us. We're taught from a young age that the government is there to protect our rights, and there's just these diligent public servants trying to build a better world. And of course, that's almost never the case. And then you have journalists. They're the people that ought to be working to prevent those people from taking advantage of their power. They should be exposing corruption and be a check on that power. But that turns out not to be the case either. And it's hard to tell who's worse, the corrupt politician or the media sycophants who enable them. In the corporate media's case, everything's behind a mask. And if it's not obvious to you at this point that everything they say has an agenda, everything they report on is not aimed at finding the truth, but it's more at maintaining their status in the power structure that we live in. I mean, at best, they're simply trying to get eyes on their content so they can make money. And if that's not obvious at this point, there might not be hope for you. I don't know what to say. A lot of people recognize the other side is full of shit, but then they convince themselves that their side is just so objective and fair. And if you're here listening to this, though, I think that's probably not you. You're safe, or at least you're about to learn all about it. I'd say that much of the time, they do a good job of keeping their cover. The media, I'm talking about. At least for people that haven't seen through it yet. They make it look like they really are just trying to report the facts. They make it look like they're looking out for the public by sharing bad things that are supposedly going on in the world. But really, they're promoting fear. A fearful population is much more likely to be looking for someone to save them. And politicians are more than happy to come in and fill that role and take control. And if you aren't looking for this, you might not notice. But more and more often lately, the mask slips. And in cases like this, like you just saw with Morning Joe before the intro, it's just completely off. They think they're hiding something. They think that mask is still covering them, but it becomes so obvious you just can't take your eyes off of it. So this clip is now a few months old. I was planning to use it earlier, but changed to a different topic back then. But this is MSNBC's Joe Scarborough saying that this, Joe Biden, is the best he's ever been. Let's see it again without the Rogan laugh track.
Start your tape right now, because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
Okay, and just to make completely clear, we are talking about United States President Joe Biden in the year 2024. He says, this is the best Biden's ever been, both intellectually and analytically. And Scarborough, he starts off this claim by saying, I'm about to tell you the truth. Now, if you've ever been in a conversation and you hear that, what does that make you think usually? I see this happen a lot in like job interviews, for example. If you hear a candidate say, to be honest, or to tell you the truth, after they've already been talking for a while, well, doesn't that just make you pause? Don't you think, wait, now you're telling me the truth? So was everything you've been saying before that a lie? And I've got to share this clip from Scott Adams because he's been pointing out these kinds of things for years. This is from 2022. Just so you know, at least some people have been seeing through this Biden charade for a long time.
So we're watching the left try to explain Biden away, and it looks like some of them have turned, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But have you tried having a conversation with a Democrat and asking how they feel about their Biden presidency? Have you done that lately? You should try it. Just ask how they think they're doing and watch the answer. Because I'm pretty sure there's nobody who thinks he's doing a good job. Like, actually. Don't you think? I'm pretty sure literally no one, quietly, like in their private time, I don't think anyone thinks he's doing a good job. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. So watching somebody answer a question when you know they're lying is really useful. Here's a tip for you. If there's somebody in your life that you suspect is a liar, don't try to catch them on all their lies. Let them lie. Because when you let them lie, if you know they're lying, this is the important part, you know they're lying, watch how they do it. Because people lie in very specific ways. It's almost like a fingerprint. The way one person lies is completely different than the way another person lies. And look for that. Once you notice that, you're going to see the tell for lying. It'll be really obvious. But you have to let them lie so you can see their method.
There are a few people out there in public talking about how Joe Biden's economy is doing great, which is an obvious lie. There are paid influencers like that Harry Sisson kid who pretend to love Biden. But even during the election in 2020, no one was excited about him. The arguments always deflect into what Trump was doing wrong. He's just not Trump. And I guess that's an okay reason to vote for him. But then you get the kind of crazed, dutiful admiration in the media that was so masterfully demonstrated in that Morning Joe clip. So when you hear him get repetitive like that, saying, this is the truth, multiple times, that's the method of lying. Twice, he says, I'm telling you the truth. And like I was saying, if you're on the news, don't you want people to automatically assume that what you're saying is true? Otherwise, why are you there? But when you hear that repeatedly, your brain should be telling you something's wrong. Why is he saying that so much? Repetition can help people remember things, but in this case, it's anti-persuasive. It's making me think the opposite. I know you're lying. And now, we've now learned that Joe's tell for lying includes this kind of repetition. But there's a little more to that segment I want to share, so let's take a look at what came before that part.
But comparing that guy's mental state, I've said it for years now, he's cogent. Mm-hmm. But I undersold him when I said he was cogent. He's far beyond cogent. In fact, I think he's better than he's ever been. Intellectually, analytically, because he's been around for 50 years. And, I don't know if people know this or not, Biden used to be a hothead. Sometimes that Irishman would get in front of the reasoning. Sometimes he would say things he didn't want to say. This is, and I don't really, you know what? I don't really care. Start your tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth.
Okay, man. I don't know why you got to throw out those hateful Irish stereotypes. I'm offended. But no, that's where it gets back to, I'm about to tell you the truth. Does that mean everything before that is a lie? Well, yeah, we know it is. I mean, come on. You're telling me that Joe Biden is beyond cogent? It's just funny at this point. I don't think I need to say much more about this, and I'm so glad traditional media is dying because they don't even try to be honest anymore. And just a side note to make sure that I'm being completely accurate, cogent is not the same as coherent. Cogent doesn't mean that he's making sense. It only means that he is compelling and persuasive. But Biden is neither cogent nor coherent, and somehow this fact came as a shock to people when they watched the presidential debate last week. Just in case you somehow didn't see this clip from the debate the other day, or just haven't been paying any attention for the last 4 years, we're talking about this guy.
Making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. With dealing with everything we have to do with. Look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden.
That was only a few minutes into the thing, and he had a big old brain fart. And you can see even Trump is looking at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? And that's coming from the guy who went on this epic nonsensical shark rant just a few weeks ago.
I say, what would happen if the boat sank from its weight and you're in the boat and you have this tremendously powerful battery and the battery's now underwater and there's a shark that's approximately 10 yards over there. By the way, a lot of shark attacks lately. Do you notice that? A lot of shark. I watched some guys justifying it today. Well, they weren't really that angry. They bit off the young lady's leg because of the fact that they were not hungry, but they misunderstood who she was. These people are crazy. He said there's no problem with sharks. They just didn't really understand a young woman swimming now really got decimated, and other people too. A lot of shark attacks. So I said, so there's a shark 10 yards away from the boat, 10 yards, or here. Do I get electrocuted? If the boat is sinking, water goes over the battery, the boat is sinking. Do I stay on top of the boat and get electrocuted? Or do I jump over by the shark and not get electrocuted?
These are the two people in the running for president. One of them is going to be the head of state in the United States for the next 4 years. I don't think I need to go on about that sad state of affairs. But this kind of performance from Biden isn't anything new. What is new is that the media sycophants are finally starting to admit it. They're kind of freaking out. There's finally talk in the left-wing press about replacing him. But don't worry, he talked to his crackhead son, who convinced him to stay in the race. That's not a joke either. That actually happened. For years now, the media's been pretending that this wasn't happening. They would tell you with a straight face that Joe Biden can't be senile because it's actually Trump who is in fact senile. Thanks for that line, Michael Malice, who called that back in 2020. But what is a little bit surprising is that there are really some people out there who are surprised by this. People who are really just now realizing that there might be some truth to that alleged right-wing conspiracy that Biden is shitting his pants in public on more than one occasion, probably even in the Vatican. Here's Bob Woodward, the winner of 2 Pulitzer Prizes, by the way, in case you still thought that award had any meaning. He's reeling after the debate.
His performance was, I sat there and watched it, and I could not believe it. I said, not only is this a political hydrogen bomb for him and the Democratic Party, what happened? What happened? And I think something happened, and if you look back at this, he holed up for days working on this, preparing for it. He knew its significance. Somebody who is a practiced politician like Biden will internalize and rehearse lines. There must have been some of that, but he got thrown off his own game somehow. And I really think there is some sort of very large explanation for this, because it was so, it was almost impossible.
Bro, I can't get over this. Either he's acting really well, or he's actually at a loss for how Joe Biden could have possibly fumbled this badly. A better question is, how have they possibly been able to make him look somewhat functional this whole time? And he's still trying to grab onto some bigger explanation. It really seems like he can't believe it, which is absolutely insane. Unless you're really deep in that left-wing media bubble. This has been everywhere for the last 4 or 5 years. And just in case you haven't been paying attention and you need to get caught up on Biden's brain turning into mush, here's some more.
He said, it's not, we lead, not just, well, I won't go into it.
Here's what drives the driver in the states that are affected. Here's what you can do, the drivers. For 2 reasons. One, it's an impact that decades been making, because inaction was there was inaction with the Department of from Charlotte, another line going from in Florida down to Tampa. The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you, that you like to be able to, anyway.
Okay, that's enough. I think you get it. This video goes on for 5 whole minutes, by the way, but I won't subject you to that. It's just back-to-back quick cuts of a man fumbling his words and losing his train of thought in the middle of his sentences. The Trump campaign put that out a while back, and the news wrote it off as deceptive editing. They said, oh, well, if you edit together a bunch of clips, you can make anyone look bad. But a 90-minute debate after 4 years of steady decline just proved to be too much. There's no way they're going to let him do another one. Even Joe Scarborough seems to have changed his tune on this. Let's see his reaction after that terrible debate performance.
I'm not saying that everything happens today and maybe we wait a week. I'm just saying personal feelings, personal admiration, love, respect, honor, all the things I talked about in my feelings about Joe Biden, Jill Biden, and their family, that Mika and her family have felt about Joe Biden for 50 years, that I felt for as long as I've known him, that you felt about Joe Biden, that cannot play a role in any of this. This is a battle for the future of American democracy. And now is a good time. In June, thank God, in June, and not October, in June, this is the last chance for Democrats to decide whether this man we've known and loved for a very long time is up to the task of running for president of the United States.
There's that repetition again, that tell that I just talked about. The personal feelings, the personal love, yada yada. But then, at the end, he finally has to admit, actually, he's not even admitting anything, but he's ceding the question. He says that now Democrats have to decide if now he's up to the task of running the country. And presumably they're looking for a replacement. So you'll be hearing this now a lot more in the wake of that debate. They do seem to be priming the public for that message. They're getting people ready for the shift, where they can bring in the new hero for our democracy and parade them around. I don't know who it'll be. I think it's going to be hard to get Kamala out of the way. But anyway, of course the dementia by itself doesn't make him a bad guy, but why is this guy at the head of the biggest empire in the history of the world? Why does his family let him keep embarrassing himself in front of the world like this? Let him go sit on the porch and eat ice cream and enjoy his remaining years in peace. He doesn't deserve that. He's a filthy politician. But if you're his family, how is that not even on the table? you got to be president, dude. Just sit the next one out. But maybe I should keep my mouth shut and just let the Democrats run it. Just the fact that they refuse to even talk about Biden's mental state for 4 years now is some real Orwellian shit. There's a pattern to this type of thing. And of course, I'm not the only one to notice. I don't know where this idea originated, but the earliest I found is Rob Henderson. He put out this tweet 3 years ago describing the way that media propaganda works. Step 1, it's not really happening. Step 2, yeah, it's happening, but it's not a big deal. Step 3, it's a good thing actually. Step 4, people freaking out about it are the real problem. And that clip of Joe Scarborough is a goldmine. It's got elements of all 4 steps in one. We get step 1 and 3 in the same breath. It's not happening, but it's good that it is because he used to be a hothead, and now he's cooled off a bit. It's a bold play in contradictions that only a corporate media pundit could say with a straight face. We even get step 4 in there, that people freaking out about it are the problem. That was the context of why he's even talking about it. He's blaming Trump supporters for pointing it out. And of course, all of that implies step 2. It's happening, but it's not a big deal. And the thing is, in a way, it's not really that big of a deal. Stay with me here. Even before the obvious mental decline, Joe Biden wasn't particularly smart. I've never heard him say anything cogent in his life. Granted, I wasn't even alive when he started his political career, so maybe there's something pre-1980s that I missed. But I shared this clip on X the other day from Part of the Problem of an issue that I've been talking about for a while. I'm not going to say Dave copied me, mostly because I'm sure he has no idea who I am, but I've said something very similar to this before more than once. Basically, it's obvious that the system is not what we're sold because of how both the Trump and Biden presidencies have played out. Let's see it.
The silver lining in all of this is that between Donald Trump's 4 years and Joe Biden's 4 years, you could not have put together a better tag team to expose how full of shit the entire system is. Both in their own ways. Donald Trump did it by kind of provoking a reaction out of the corporate media and the political class that kind of overextended themselves and exposed the holes in them. And then Joe Biden did it just by being a walking vegetable and demonstrating that the entire system will attempt to protect you as best as possible. That they will totally lie to their own, audience in order to protect their interests.
Yeah, so because Trump was just bypassed and undermined, and then now Biden is just so clearly a puppet for the regime, you can see that the president isn't actually running things. So it's not really that big of a deal that Biden isn't coherent most of the time. And actually, I'm sure the people behind the scenes are really enjoying that because they get basically no pushback for their agenda. But that's getting off topic here a bit. This isn't really about Trump or Biden or their policies or how they even act as people. It's about the news coverage. So, in probably every country, they think their news is right and other countries' news is just obvious propaganda. Americans would be really quick to recognize propaganda in the Chinese or the Russian media. We're generally raised to think that other countries' news outlets are fake, especially our state enemies. People don't question that at all. But it's much harder to see or accept that your own country's media is fake too. In America, we're free, right? That's why we're so great. They would not lie to us here, no way. But of course, everyone knows they do. At least everyone knows that the side they're against is lying. But most people don't put together that the side that they're with is also lying. And Scarborough was just one blatant example. It happens all day, every day. Every time I go to the gym, they've got Fox News and CNN up there on the TVs next to each other. And it's just hilarious, the kind of nonsense that they put out there. I don't even have to hear it. Just the headlines on the chyron at the bottom of the screen are clearly not objective and usually not true. Even if you want to be extremely generous, you could say they're not trying to be deceitful, but it's just the nature of human bias to get some things wrong and see things through a certain lens. Okay, I'm sure there's some of that. Anyone who's presenting information has to decide what's important to share and what isn't. I'm doing that right now. You can't relive an entire world of happenings on a news production. It's simply not possible. Things get cut or ignored that they don't think are important to the bigger story. That does happen, and maybe, sometimes, it's innocent. And even like 5 years ago, I could have somewhat accepted that as usually or sometimes true. But I don't know how in 2024, if you're paying any attention, how could you believe that these news mega corporations have any interest in presenting the truth? One of the few things Donald Trump did get right was calling out dishonest media right to their faces.
Mr. President, you repeatedly, over the course of the...
just sit down, please. Well, when you report fake news, when you report fake news, which CNN does a lot, you are the enemy of the people. Go ahead.
Mr. President.
And they even spun this to say he wanted all journalists locked up or something stupid like that. When they do this, when the media starts reporting things that are just obvious lies, they are the enemy of the people. Look, we allegedly live in a democratic system, right? So if people are voting, you want them to be informed. And for all the flaws of democracy, which there are many, even in an honest world, you can be damn sure you're not going to get a good outcome when the population doesn't have access to real information. All they have are the narratives pushed by some really nefarious people. So any enemy of the people is perfectly accurate and probably too soft a term for them. That brings me to this clip that was going viral last week of Tucker Carlson just absolutely roasting a journalist during a Q&A at some speech he had given in Australia. I know I used Tucker not that long ago, but this is just a masterclass in how to treat the disingenuous kind of questioning that these people are seemingly taught to do. So this lady comes in. I don't know her name. I purposely didn't seek it out because I'm not that kind of person. I don't want to give her any more attention than she's already had. I hope she learned something from this exchange, although I'm not really confident about that. And this is not unique to her. This is standard behavior from the corporate press. She comes in and she's obviously thinking she's got something. She's going to get him with these questions and expose him for the terrible person that he is. But she could not have prepared for this. So we'll start this off. She's asking a question about how Tucker allegedly promotes the Great Replacement theory. If you don't know what that is, it's the idea that there is some plot by the elites to replace the American population with foreigners. If you go look at the SPLC or similar organizations, they describe it as a white nationalist conspiracy theory that's aiming to eliminate or at least subjugate the white population of America by making them a small minority. Now, it doesn't really matter for this purpose whether or not you believe that. But these journalist hacks and politicians seeking to score points will attribute belief in this theory to anyone who dares to even question immigration policy. Anyone who thinks, hey, I'm not sure that just letting millions of people in unchecked is the best thing for our country. They accuse them of racism, white supremacy, all the typical noise you expect from the managerial class. And whether or not you think that's a good or bad thing is really not the point here. You can believe what you like, but it is happening. White people are becoming a minority in America and in many European countries. And I don't think skin colors matters one bit. I don't care. But that isn't the issue most people are taking with what's happening, and that is the disingenuous part. So, okay, let's get into it.
So much for your address today. So you talked a little bit about immigration, and in the past you've talked about how white Australians, Americans, Europeans are being replaced by non-white immigrants in what is often referred to as the Great Replacement theory. This is the same...
Have I said that whites are being replaced?
Well...
I don't think I said that.
Well, it's been mentioned on your show 4,000 times. And
really, when did I say that?
On your show.
I said whites are being replaced?
You have said that before.
Really?
Yeah.
I would challenge you to cite that, because I'm pretty sure I haven't said that.
Okay, so you can see Right away, the accusation comes out, and Tucker handles it like a pro. He just says, "Where did I say that? I haven't said that." And she says, "Oh, well, you've said it about 4,000 times on your show. This is the attribution of guilt that I was talking about." He's talked about immigration. He said Americans are not reproducing at replacement rate, which is simply a fact. And again, whether or not that is a bad thing, you decide. There are a lot of American-born people that are really shitty. There are a lot of foreign-born people that are great. I don't think your birthplace says a whole lot about who you are as a person, other than maybe some cultural differences that may or may not be present. And maybe people left because they reject their home culture. That's also very possible. Anyway, let's continue.
I said native-born Americans are being replaced, including blacks.
Native-born Americans.
Native-born Americans.
And
Americans who, like black Americans, have been African Americans, have been in the United States for, in many cases, their families over 400 years. And their concerns are every bit as real and valid and alive to me as the concerns of white people whose families have been there 400 years. So I've never said that whites are being replaced. Not one time. And you can't cite it.
Untrue.
So we just met, but when our relationship starts with a lie, it makes it tough to be friends. So
you've been lying
let's
about
pull
my
that back.
Press
I'm
Gallery
happy to
colleagues all
explain what I
morning as
do
well,
think.
so,
Well, you actually can't say it because I didn't say it, and I don't believe it. And I'm telling you that to your face, so why don't you just accept me at face value?
So right in the middle there. When you start a relationship with lies, it's hard to be friends. That's gold. One, it sets up the journalist as pursuing something from you. We know she's not trying to be friends with him. She's trying for a gotcha. She wants that win of showing big famous guy, far-right Tucker Carlson, that she can pull one over on him. But Tucker reframes it as, "I want to be friends, and you're just attacking me for no reason." Persuasion-wise, that hits. Not for her, probably, but for everyone watching. You can't cite it because I didn't say it. And then he says, "I'm happy to tell you what I do think." These are also great lines to use when faced with this kind of dishonest questioning. So he's about to tell us what he does think.
My concern is that the people who are born in the country are the main responsibility of its leaders. And as noted earlier, when those leaders shift their concern from the people whose responsibility it is to take care of to people around the world to put their priorities above that of their own citizens, that's immoral. And they are being replaced in my country, people who are born in the United States. And the birth rate tells the whole story. They are not at replacement rate. And so the U.S. population is growing because we're importing people from other countries. And my view is that happy people have children, and a functioning economy allows them to do that. And we don't have that. And so you need to fix the economy and fix the culture and make it so that people who want to have kids can. You don't just go for the quick sugar fix of importing new people. Like, that's my position. And if you think that's racist, that's your problem.
Okay, so perfectly reasonable concerns. He's concerned about the economy and the people that are born in the U.S. Now, personally, like I said, I don't care where someone is born. I think if you come to the U.S., you work, you contribute to society, you should be able to live here. And we could get into a whole debate about whether or not people from outside the country are likely to be a net positive or criminals or whatever the beef is. So Tucker and I would maybe have some disagreements there, but that's a topic for another time. On the economy, he's right. If we're going to have a government that claims to be representing its population, they should actually do that. And clearly, they don't even pretend to care about us. But the point is, he's telling her exactly what his concerns are. He's articulating it well, but she's still on this mindset of trying to get him, trying to prove he's some kind of racist. Let's keep going.
I never called you a racist.
But of course you are suggesting, and
Well,
I must say one of the reasons people don't like people like you in the media is that you never say exactly what you mean. Your slurs are all by implication, and you're about to tell me the great replacement theory is racist or anti-Semitic, whatever. I've said what I've said to you right now like 100 times in public. I hope to, if I live long enough, say it 100 more times. I think it's completely honest and real, not racist or scary. It's factually true. It's not a theory, it's a fact. And the whole point of your question was to be like, you're a scary racist.
Well, I haven't
And
actually
my
finished my
response is, no,
question.
I'm not. Okay, well, how about no more lying in your questions, and then I'll answer it.
Okay, well, this is the same theory, or as you say, idea, that has inspired the New York Buffalo shooting where 11 black Americans were killed.
on.
2
You know
white
what I mean?
Americans were killed.
Here's where she makes the gigantic leap from maybe we should fix immigration policy to "you inspired the Buffalo shooter." This strategy, unfortunately, works on too many people. You associate a moderate, perfectly reasonable position with the most extreme version of that position. Then the psychopath that goes and shoots up a grocery store, who clearly was a racist, is suddenly the same thing as someone who thinks that unlimited, unchecked immigration might not be in the best interest of American citizens. It's so dishonest, but that's exactly what they try to do. So Tucker calls her out, and she says, hey, whoa, I never said racist. But we all know that's what she's doing. And maybe there's something here about just different understandings of different concepts. Like, if I say I'm a libertarian, there are going to be a million people out there who will say that my definition of that is incorrect. And there are surely people who have different understandings of what the great replacement might mean. And I don't want to get too off topic here, but that's obvious, right? Like, some people hear, I'm concerned about my country and culture. It's like they're trying to replace us, and then automatically associate that with hating the other people and assume you want to inflict violence on others, which is just not the case for most people. Anyway, let's watch Tucker just blow this up.
You say idea that has inspired the New York Buffalo shooting, where 11 black Americans
come
were killed.
on.
2
You know
white
what I mean?
Americans were killed.
Like,
And it's also
okay,
inspired.
it's not. First of all,
it's inspired the worst, one of the worst Australian guns
how do
of
they
all
get
time
people
to
this
shoot
stupid in the media? I guess it doesn't pay well. Look, I'm sorry. I've lived among people like you for too long, and I don't mean to call you stupid. Maybe you're just pretending to be, but I'm totally against violence. I'm totally against the war in Ukraine, for example, which doubtless you support. And like all dutiful liberals, support more carnage. I don't. I hate mass shootings, actually. Nothing I said, what does it mean to inspire something? My views are not bigoted against any group. They're honest. They're factual. That's not hate. That's reality. And my views derive from my deep concern for Americans, actually.
Okay, so he makes the connection to a glaring contradiction in lefty logic that there is, or at least was, overwhelming support for Ukraine to protect its borders against foreign takeover, which resulted in hundreds of thousands of people killed, with virtually no care for them, while being in control of our own border is something that's completely out of the question. But unfortunately, as you know, if you've ever tried to do this, pointing out hypocrisy is just not persuasive. And then just calling the reporter stupid is not a great look. It was funny. I can't say I would have shown any more restraint in this case. She kind of deserves it for the dishonest question and trying to link him to a mass shooter. I'm sure I would have said much worse. But his concern is for Americans. And again, this could go for hours back and forth, whether or not that's a good thing. But it's just not unreasonable for someone in a specific area to be more concerned about the people in that area than the people outside of it. There are 8 billion people in the world. No one has the capacity to care about all of them. You just can't do it. So again, this is just a very mildly conservative opinion that she's trying to frame as genocidal. Let's keep going.
Americans aren't having kids because they can't afford to, and nobody in charge cares. And so that's my position. That doesn't inspire mass shootings. How dare you try to tie me to some lunatic who murdered people? How dare you, actually? And in fact, I mean, do you know what I mean? I'd be like, Hitler wore those shoes. A lot of people are saying that you're like Hitler. Can you explain those shoes? Hitler wore exactly the same shoes, and you're like, I've got nothing to do with Hitler. Well, that's how I feel about your absurd, disingenuous question.
Right, so therefore you support gun control?
What? I thought it couldn't get dumber, but it did. No, I don't support disarming law-abiding people so they can't defend themselves. So the government has a monopoly on violence? I don't think so.
What? Now, this lady happens to be Australian, so I'll cut her a little slack in believing in gun control. This is the kind of thinking that we have to deal with, though, from a whole lot of Americans, too. Well, if you're against mass shootings, then clearly you're for gun control. That's the argument. Or often you get the reverse argument, which is the same, but somehow a little bit more deranged. They'll say, if you don't support gun control, you don't care about dead kids. It's horrible. And if you want to see that argument completely destroyed, go watch Spike Cohen's debate with David Hogg from a couple months ago. Now, in Australia, they don't have guns, and look what happened there during COVID. They sent people to quarantine prisons. I'm not going to say concentration camps because I'm about to tell you that Hitler analogies aren't very persuasive either. But they did concentrate people there against their will in a camp-type setting. Anyway, another massive leap in logic demonstrated by the reporter, and Tucker highlights the absurdity of linking those two things with an analogy about Hitler. So, what I was saying about these analogies, when you compare things to Hitler, that's not persuasive because it's too extreme in almost every case. Like, the difference in the one thing, whatever it is never really comparable to what the Nazis did. But using it in this way, where Tucker shows how absurd that comparison is, can be effective, and I think it works here. I'm also biased against the journalist in this case, so I'd be curious to know how it lands with someone who isn't. But let's finish this part up with the last clip here.
I'm a Christian. I hate violence. I hate mass shootings. I have guns at home, and often on my person when I'm in the United States, I'm proud to say, because I want to defend myself and those I love against violence. That's the point. I'm not perpetrating crimes. I'm not shooting strangers. I'm defending what I love. And if you're against that, I guess I would ask why. Why would you be against that?
Well, so you don't think you harbor any kind of responsibility for these hate crimes?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to be charitable. I was like, maybe you're just pretending to be dumb. Now I don't think it's an act.
A lot of people in this situation will backtrack, try to explain too much, and empathize with the person. And when you're dealing with someone who is being this dishonest, you cannot do that. Tucker gives a hard no when asked if he takes responsibility for any of these things. Hell no, I don't, and he shouldn't. And he finishes it off with an insult again, which is not going to make her come around, but it makes the audience laugh. I really tried, he says. And then he has to stop it because it's all too dumb. So this topic came up a little bit in my last show with Spike. I said that when you start gaining some awareness of reality, you find out that not only are journalists not interested in finding the truth, they are actively covering up lies. This is a great example of a journalist thinking they're going to win a point on someone who the regime finds distasteful. And they probably do it for the praise of their peers in that media bubble that they live in, but also for the favor of those government officials that pull them under their umbrella of power. And it kind of makes sense from a career standpoint. So if your job depends on you having access to the people in power as a political reporter, then you have to play ball or they're not going to talk to you. And as you gain some trust with them, you start to get invited to special events and you get to be part of the club. So even if you come in honest, I imagine, and I've heard at least a few reporters say this, you start to give up principle a little bit at a time to stay in that position. So this is just a natural outcome of the system that exists. We shouldn't really expect any different. But that's why you should always be heavily skeptical of anything you see in the news, especially around politics. The incentives for honesty and truth are not there. But we're lucky that we're not just limited to these corporate outlets for news today. There are some good independent journalists out there, and while it may not be possible to ever be truly unbiased, there's some commitment to truth there. So reward those people when you can find them. Share their stuff, give them a few bucks here and there when you can, and make sure the ones that are lying to you don't get a dime. It's the only way that we could start to fix things. This is going on really long, so I'm going to break it up into 2 parts. I'll close it out there. Check out part 2 next week. Thank you for watching Drop the Mask, and I'll see you next time.